I'm going to start with Kiyokawa. It is no secret that the VA is in the midst of deploying a new electronic health record system. This program has not rolled out as smoothly as I think anybody would want it, and we've dumped a bunch of money into it. You've got some past history with the DoD and electronic health records. Tell us what lessons you would bring to the VA that you learned from your time at the Defense Health Agency and quite frankly, your Army career when it comes to EHR work.
Senator, thank you for that question. As I mentioned earlier, one of the key things is to have that true IT infrastructure backbone. One thing we learned early on when we were bringing the services together to have that single backbone, it had to be reliable. If you put the system on top of unreliable IT infrastructure, then everybody points at the system when it's actually your infrastructure that's unreliable. So that would be the first thing that we learned right off the bat. The bigger thing, though, and it's already been alluded to in change management, is everybody points at the system and the record. And one of the challenges we had in DoD is we had basically systems that we developed on our own, which was appropriate because industry hadn't been at the point that it is today. But we kept modifying the system to meet the workflows and the way we practice medicine with wide variation across our enterprise. And the big difference is that we're buying an off-the-shelf medical record from Cerner, where we have to commit to a standardized way of doing business, a standardized workflow. And so that change management at every location for every workflow becomes critical. Now, the trick there becomes creating that standard workflow, but then ensuring that those on the ground have some say and input into that workflow. And that's where we had a challenge when it first kicked off. It was not smooth when it first kicked off. And part of it was because we did not invest enough training with those who actually were using it from a functions perspective. Cerner came up with the training from what's called buttonology, how to use the system, but really where was the training for the change management? And then more importantly, how were the guys that were actually implementing it had feedback into those workflows so we could continue to improve the workflows? And instead of customizing the system, how do you modify the system? And the product that we're deploying today is not the same product when we first started. And lastly, I would say once we got it going, we developed something called the Pay It Forward program, where we had actual providers who had deployed it at their site actually physically go to the next site and sit down with their peers. And it's that peer-to-peer relationship that started to get the buy-in that's so important with change management.
So we've had people testify in front of this committee before that says on electronic health records, most of them have been train wrecks because the people who are running them don't like them. I would assume that getting buy-in and getting input is pretty critical to getting these folks to like these systems when they go live. Can you tell me what you're going to do different than what's already been done to get input from those folks?
So, Senator, I'm not familiar on the details of what's already been done, but some of the things that I just described are some of the best practices that we found within the Department of Defense. Back to
I got you. Best practices are good. Now, how are you going to implement those best practices? How are you going to get that feedback? How are you going to make sure those people feel like they're part of the team? How do you do that?
So a big part of it, Senator, is as you implement some of those workflows, is that they are part of the development of those workflows. And when I say that, you need a starting point. So you have a standardized workflow to walk in the door with. But then there are definitely unique opportunities within certain geographic areas, within certain healthcare organizations. And it's back to understanding the difference between a customization, which we try to stay away from, versus just a modification or a configuration that meets those requirements. So keeping the ears open and listening to those who are actually providing the care and understanding what their requirements are and seeing how the reconfiguration of the health record can meet those requirements versus wholesale modifications and customizations.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez, very quickly, you're a retired Marine Corps First Sergeant. You have personally experienced the challenges that come with transitioning out of the military. as well as guiding your own troops during their transitions. How would you use that experience to inform your leadership in this new position?
Well, Senator, you're exactly right. I think having personal experience really allows us a deeper insight into the entire transition process. And one of the things that I know for certain is getting as much information to that individual that he or she can make the most beneficial decision for them and their families when they're transitioning out is something that we are definitely trying to do here at Department of Labor Vets. We know that that is what they are taught while they're on active duty, is receive information and make a decision that is beneficial to you and the organization.
Thank you.